Motion to open up the August 18th meeting at 6:30 PM.
I motion to open the meeting at 6:30.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so our first order of business is to ratify the agent's approval for numbers 48 Elm Street and building 37 Twin Lakes Drive. Bob, you see anything of any concern?
No, on Twin Lakes, they'll be adding a bull valve so that they'll be able to switch the system, you know, from one side and then back to the other if need be, so.
They're gonna do that on planned times or just if once you go into failure?
No, if the other one goes into failure.
Okay.
What happens over in Twin Lakes is the water usage and the how the residents or tenants of any building treat the systems.
Yeah.
So at any given point in time, they could last forever or they can break down really quickly.
I've seen some crazy water use over there.
Exactly.
Numbers.
So they're regular, and they've both been reviewed by the review engineer, ready to go.
No issues, Ron?
Done.
All right, I'd like to entertain the motion that we ratify both 48 Elm Street and building number 37 Twin Lakes Drive for approval.
Motion to ratify 48 Elm Street and building number 37 Twin Lakes Drive.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we need to vote to approve the clerical change from July 7th, 2021 meeting minutes from opening meeting time at 6:01 to opening meeting time at 6:31.
I didn't look at that, but so that's right, because we did have one meeting that we started at 6:01.
Yeah, I looked
Okay.
at it. It was in the Royalty.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So motion to approve the clerical change for the July 7th meeting minutes from opening meeting time of 6:01 PM to opening meeting time of 6:31 PM.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we got Kelly a new battery for a watch, so we'll have the right time.
All right, 450 Industrial Park Drive, Pledge Tree Service. How are you? All right, so the board came up with a few different questions that we wanted to ask and just trying to get everybody to play and get along nice.
Certainly.
So we get 6 questions the board came up with. Let's see how we can do. All right, what is the status of the fire department's compliance letter? Have you guys received a compliance? You guys are in compliance with your new sketch yet?
Allow me to answer that, please. First of all, I'm Andy Resovitz. Thanks for having me here tonight. Thanks for accommodating us tonight.
Thank you for coming.
On the I think it was the 4th, yeah. So I talked to Chief Averos today, and we're not totally in compliance yet, but he says that Cled's doing a good job. He's made some great progress. Specifically, he said that, you know, he's cleaned up the site. He's done a lot of work to get all these log piles in the right place so that the spaces are wide enough for emergency vehicles. And I don't know if you've seen the plan. Have you seen the plan?
I have.
Okay, it's pretty extensive, and Cled's gone through a great expense to comply with this. The only thing left is there's a requirement to surround the chip pile, which is the wood chips,
Yeah.
and the scrap pile on 3 sides by cinder blocks. And these aren't just little cinder blocks, they're not cinder blocks, they're concrete blocks. They're this big. And, Cled has almost completed that. I have some pictures of that. I don't know if you're interested in seeing that, just to show you that this is not just me saying this, but there's pictures. If I can approach, I can put these pictures up for you. And
That was a anticipated complete date on that project there?
well, here's, I'm going to explain that. And that's where these are, right here.
Yeah.
So it's a very large area. This is the chips. This is almost done. We just need a little bit more right here. And then this one's not done yet. There's 2 reasons why it's not done yet. One is the blocks are exceptionally expensive. They go from 40 to 180 bucks per block. He needs about 50 more. And he's trying to buy them as efficiently as possible. I talked to the chief and he said, you know, I'd like to see him get it done faster, but I get it, I understand. And he's doing the right thing. But the scrap pile is not surrounded yet. And the reason why is it's bigger than the area right now that is laid out. We know it needs to be smaller. We got to get it decreased. We use the grinder to get rid of the scrap. And Cled has not been using, Mr. Ferrer has not been using the grinder until we square this away.
Okay.
As soon as we do, we're going to finish that up and put this cinder block wall up, and then we'll be in compliance.
In compliance.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, yeah, I mean, you're doing great work. I mean, that's phenomenal right there. And I understand the financial strain behind it with the pricing being ridiculous right now on everything.
Materials, yeah, as you know.
So we know. Have you guys checked with the zoning board, just to make sure that the equipment you guys are using is rated for light industrial?
So I haven't been able to get any kind of answer from the zoning board about that equipment. I've thoroughly looked at the zoning bylaws, and there's no mention of that I can see. In terms of like, there's no restrictions in the zoning bylaws about the kind of work that Cled does that I'm aware of. The light industrial use is, defined, they list many uses, but they don't list many more uses. Many uses that are existing in the industrial park today. Like, for instance, there's construction companies, there's a company that builds race cars. These are not listed in the light industrial, as they're not defined in the definitions of light industrial. This is a very short list.
Right.
So, I mean, I can't give a yes or no answer. I can tell you this, that if you look at what heavy industrial is, or industrial 2, it doesn't line up with what Cled's Tree Service does. It's more like fill and earth moving, that type of thing. So I just don't think that the zoning bylaws are really designed to address this specific issue.
Specific?
The issue is noise, and whether or not it's something that's a reasonable practice in light of Cled's business and in an industrial park, and what he can do
All
about
as a
it.
whole. Have you found anything different, Bob?
Well, more a question, since you did look at the bylaws.
Yeah.
For zoning.
Yeah.
Is noise or nuisance mentioned anywhere in that bylaw?
Of course it is, yeah. That is, let me see if I can refer to my notes. So, I mean, I know I read it, and I know what you're referring to. There is, a bylaw against, how they describe the noise, but an offensive noise. I would say this, though. There are other types of, well, I mean, there's a lot I have to say about it, and I can talk about that right now. And that's this, that Clegg went through a lot of trouble to purchase this property in the industrial park. The industrial park was created, in the wisdom of the town of Halifax, on the town line, zoned industrial. It's not next to residential properties. It's next to, a reservoir and across the street from more industrial areas. There's 106, and there's more industrials. There's industrial zone 1 and industrial zone 2. And if you move down the street, down Plymouth Street, it's commercial and business. And so in this particular case, there's a few residential areas in here, not many. They're up by this, what I believe is a cranberry bog, up by Circuit Street. And, Circuit Street, for instance, there's a complainant here, Mr., we'll just say person who owns 129 Circuit Street. His lot is zoned half in a commercial zone. It's half residential, half commercial. And so are both lots on each side of him. In fact, they're more than half commercial. The neighbors behind him are all commercial, and they're backed up to the street where there's a commercial business there. And then to the left and right it's all commercial. So, I mean, I think it's hard to say that when if you live in an area, if you buy a house that's surrounded on all sides by residential, by industrial, commercial, business, and agricultural, because across is the bog, which, there's farming with big machinery going on in the bog, that it's hard to say, I don't expect there to be noises. It's kind of like buying a house next to an airport and then complaining about the airplanes flying, in my opinion. So although, yeah, I admit that there's something in the bylaws about noise, I would say that might be really designed to say, hey, if you're in a neighborhood, you can't be blaring loud music or revving an engine at late hours of the night. But if you went through the trouble of setting up, of buying a property in an industrial park that was set up for the purposes of running businesses, like the Cled's and the businesses that are surrounded by him in the industrial park that use heavy machinery, like the trucking business next door, or the construction company next door across the street, or the race car. Apparently they make race cars there, and they come out and rev the engines up, and then that, you know, just because there's a bylaw in the town that says you can't have obnoxious noise, it may not be meant to be applied to what goes on in an industrial park. And if you happen to live across the street and away from nearby an industrial park, I mean, that would be reflected in the price of the property. And this isn't in a neighborhood that is set up to be as quiet as some other neighborhoods, because it's surrounded by industry and agriculture and business.
I understand. Does the decibel rule play a part in the fact if it is commercial all around it? You know the laws a little better than I do, so I'm kind of looking to you for guidance here.
So basically what will happen, if zoning says it's A-okay, you know, for use, and the noise can't be used as either, you know, for or against, then that's where it falls into play for the Board of Health. Specifically under 310 CMR, and I do have it printed up just in case you don't have that, but where I have to do is I have to follow up to make sure that no person owning, leasing, or controlling a source of sound shall willfully, negligently, or through failure to provide necessary equipment, service, or maintenance, or take necessary precautions, cause, suffer, allow, or permit unnecessary emissions from said source of sound that may cause noise. Again, 310 CMR 7.10 shall pertain to, but shall not be limited to, prolonged unattended sounding of burglar alarms, construction and demolition equipment which characteristically emit sounds, but which may be fitted and accommodated with equipment such as enclosures to suppress sound, or may be operated in a manner so as to suppress sound, suppressible and preventable industrial and commercial sources of sound, and other man-made sounds that cause noise. Shall not apply to sounds emitted during and associated with parades, public gatherings, sporting events, or which permits have been issued, provided that said parades, public gatherings, or sporting events in one city or town do not cause noise in another city or town. And then it goes on more with the fire department and such. So I did reach out to DPH. We do have a noise meter. At that point, I would have to do decibel readings, which would be at the source, someplace away from the source, and then at the location where the complaint came from on Circuit Street. They're done 20-minute intervals every 10 seconds for 20 minutes at each location. First, I would get an ambient sound at each location. Hopefully, this is all done on the same day, and it has to be weather permitting because rain will affect it, wind will affect it. And then have CLED operate that piece of machinery in the method that it is meant to be operated. This came from DEP to ensure that we'd have the big stumps, and we might have just some little stumps too. And that way there, I'd have the readings, it would go to DEP, and it goes from there.
Do we
So-
know if there's an allowable noise level, like during business hours? Like, does it say what it is during business hours or after hours, or?
I don't.
Yeah, I would just like to chime in on that. I mean, Cled,
Right.
observes business hours. He says, first of all, he doesn't run the machine all the time. He hasn't been running it at all lately.
No.
And he runs it, he's cognizant and considerate of his neighbors, doesn't run it at night. Says he only runs it between, 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. And that's not constant. That's when he might run it. Right now, the pile's getting big, and it needs to get run in order to get rid of the pile. And then hopefully it won't be run often, that
Now,
often.
I'm sorry, is that Monday through Friday that he runs it?
It's
from
Monday
7
through
to 5?
Friday, yeah. Monday through Friday?
Sometimes, if we at the yard, we run in Monday to Friday. If we are there Saturday, if we have to, we might do that. We never exceed the business hours.
Yeah. And I think where Cled's coming from is, he feels like he has certain rights to just run his business since, given the fact that he's gone through so much trouble to set up his business in the right way, he didn't just go in there and set up shop and drop a machine down. Of course, he went to the building department, the zoning board of appeals, and they told him exactly what to do, and he's been complying with them the best they can. And in fact, he got this grinder, which was a very expensive piece of machinery, just so he could keep the yard clean. Because
I understand that, and I understand exactly where you're coming from as far as industrial, commercial, residential, but as the Board of Health, we have to make sure that it's healthy for, within the decibels.
I understand that.
That we have to do. I would much rather, and I'm sure the board agrees with me, find an easier way to, solve this versus bringing out all this technical equipment. I mean, I always thought that nuisance was described as a nuisance can be to anybody. I had a cop one time tell me that my dog barking was a neighbor to my nuisance and I had to stop it. I live in a residential neighborhood, I'm allowed to have a dog. I mean, is there some sort of barrier or something we can put up, or are we just kind of going with, we moved into a industrial place, this is the way we're running our business, this is the way we are,
Right.
and there's really nothing,
We've actually,
And, just so that, and sorry to interrupt, Steve, to your point, that's what DEP is hoping for a solution. They don't want to go down the noise reading end of things as much as they would prefer. Other cases may require local officials to exercise their skill of, diplomacy and mediation to help parties to dispute and reach an accommodation. But, so our first line of defense is certainly what you just brought up, and we'll have to take it from there.
right? So my response to that is that controlling noise, I mean, I talked to, I'm not an engineer, and I don't run Cled's business, and I asked Cled about all these questions about mufflers and sound barriers and things like that. He says it's really not practical or possible that he can imagine. But one idea he did come up with, and he'd like to avoid the expense, and so I would say, I don't, never seen DEP come out and measure noise before, but, we'd like to know what the noise really is 1,300 feet away from the site, which is where the complainant lives. But if it is higher, if the level of noise is higher than something that is considered acceptable, then Cled has an idea that we can raise some mesh screens that he believes will absorb the noise or deflect some of the noise in the corner of that property where the grinder is more or less, am I correct?
Yep.
And that happens to be facing that direction.
He explained that, and,
So that could be
was
very
good.
expensive, we don't know how well it will work. I mean, it's not something, I don't know if I've ever I'm sure Cled's never done it before.
I mean, I know on Route, I don't know if you travel Route 44 a lot in the Plymouth County
do.
area, but I know when they put in the new 44, they put those barriers in for this exact situation for homeowners. You can see them go right down, I believe it's in between Spring Street and Route 58.
You mean for highway noise or?
For highway noise, which I would personally would think grinding sound is a lot louder and more ear piercing than cars driving down a highway. It isn't the 60s with the big mufflers and the carburetors anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, and I would have to look more into it, that there was a reason the state spent all that money to put those barriers up in that area that have houses up in that area. I don't know if anybody has any more experience with that or has seen that in that area of highway. Bob, I know you travel that area. So, I mean, I guess.
they put them there
I guess-
for a reason.
So basically, just so I understand, basically, we're not going to, everything's expensive. So we're not going to actually try and remedy it unless the numbers come back high. Is that how I'm
Well, I
understanding?
mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying I'm not giving an ultimatum by any
Right.
means. We want to work with you and get this done and operate inside, the town of Halifax in a friendly manner. We're just trying to be efficient about it because after all, this is a business, right? And at least Cled's running a business. So, I mean, I kind of expected the noise to be measured and that would give us some feedback.
Right.
If you don't want to go that route and,
I mean, if that's the route we have to go, first we have to find out would Cled and anybody who complained, I now have 2 complaints. One person's not here, the other person is. If anything is a satisfactory remedy for them, like,
Right.
I talked to my neighbor one day and said, hey, could you mow your lawn at 9 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
And he did it at 9, so.
Or even shortening those hours, like if you did like 9 to 2 or something,
Right,
specifically for that.
or, okay, I won't do it on Saturdays because I know most people have, Saturdays off. Maybe there's a reasonable solution out there that we can come to this, a neighborly agreement. Cled's a neighbor as well as Chris is a neighbor, so.
State your name and address, please.
Chris Winowitz, 129 Circle Street. The law is pretty clear. It doesn't matter operating hours or anything. If it's too loud, it's noise pollution, it needs to be mitigated.
All right, and too loud is that based on the decibel amounts? Is that what they're,
Decibels of background.
okay, that's what they're basing it on though?
In fact, the DEP says 10 decibels above ambient background, which is a whisper and leaves rustling. So basically, anything louder than the ambient background.
well, may I
Well,
respond to
no,
that?
because talking would be almost 50 decibels above ambient, which would be no noise level at all. So, OSHA regulations actually give distances for that and decibel readings, and the closest one that they would have would be, like, let's say a wood chipper. At 300 feet away, we could be at 66 decibels. A dump truck at 69, and a bulldozer at 70. Now, they only go up to 300 feet, so, I mean, the particular property in question right now is, I think, more than even 1,300 feet.
Well, the DEP says it doesn't have to be a body, it's right here from DEP.
Then-
Just to the nearest sensitive receptor.
So once DEP would get our decibel readings, they would make that determination. That would be a DEP determination based upon our decibel readings.
Yeah, our bylaws area forbidden uses in any district may be permitted to produce any nuisance or hazard or offensive noise or vibration, which may affect or impair the normal use and peaceful enjoyment of any property, structure, or dwelling in the neighborhood. And in light industrial use, industrial enterprise such as manufacturing, storage, processing, fabrication, packaging, assembly that does not create a nuisance from noise and vibration.
So if I may be heard, and I think maybe we're all thinking the same thing, is, this is why the bylaws, and, in my experience as an attorney, there's statutes. There are many statutes, there's lots of laws that are written in black and white. And then there are thousands of volumes of case law, which interprets those laws. Well, what do these laws mean? How should they be applied? Is this the appropriate application of the law? I think that, here, the Board of Health has the authority, the discretion to decide, well, when should this noise restriction be applied? Should it be applied to the industrial park? Or should it be applied to, in this situation? Is it reasonable? Does the complainant have a reasonable expectation that noise should be not above 10 decibels, the sound of leaves ruffling, in this spot? Or is that unreasonable? Compared to if someone's, living in a fully residential neighborhood and some kid's playing trumpet at 6 a.m. in the morning, is that reasonable? And we can't shut down every business in the industrial park for being over 10 decibels, and we can't apply the law here and not here. It has to be applied consistently throughout. So I think that clearly, your authoritative body has the discretion to decide what's reasonable and how, when and where those bylaws apply. It's not black and white.
Well, I can tell you, in 40 years living there, that's the loudest machine that's ever been in that part of town. You can hear it a mile and a half away, all the way to Summer Street.
So I think we should just do the readings. I think we need some objective data here because we've got, CLUD's subjective opinion, the residents' opinion. I think we need some objective data. I think we should do the decibel readings and then we can compare, So say you get a reading, you can say, okay, this is equivalent to a dump truck being in your backyard, or this is equivalent to, highway noise, whatever. And then we have something more objective to go on. So I think we're going to just have to go that route.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're going to get anywhere.
I don't think so. I think if we have something objective that we can compare, I think then we'll be able to make more headway on this. I feel like right now everything we have is subjective, and I think we should get the readings and the numbers and go from there.
I would agree at this point.
Yeah.
Now, just so I understand, this is a learning curve for this kind of thing. If the numbers come back within the limits, game over, correct? I mean, there's no other, that's kind of...
Unless we want to take our broad brush and supersede what DEP would recommend.
But at that point...
And
it's
say,
lost.
right, I mean...
Okay, all right.
I think if we have the numbers and we can use some of the examples that you were giving, so I would not know what the decibels were unless you gave a list like you just had about, this is equivalent to a dump truck or whatever. I think then we'll all have a better idea of what we're talking about. Because none of us here have experience except CLUD and the residents.
Right.
So
See,
that would be my hope, is not that just a certain number, okay, that's it, but then we have something to compare it to so we can all have a better idea of what this noise is.
Yeah, we got it in black and white. And we
Yeah.
got to say, right, well, this is the law, this is below or above the law.
Yeah.
My previous experience, and, to the attorney's points, a lot of things are in laws and statutes and cases that have been done. Noise and odor complaints tend to have this sort of ambiguity to them because nobody hears the same, nobody smells the same, and they can't just tell you flat out, well, this noise is terrible. Well, even when you look up, okay, what's bad? It's so subjective in how they judge what a bad or a good sound is, so it's a difficult area of regulation for the health department because it's not as clear cut as walking into a restaurant and saying, guess what? Your sanitizer level's not 200 parts per million, so it's wrong, No, you walk in and you have to say, yeah, that's loud. Yeah, that's really loud. Oh, that's super loud. They don't say, you know, so, it's something that we want to, be
So when can we do
careful
that?
of. I'll do meter readings, no problem.
All right, so can we have those, is it possible to have those numbers at our next meeting, or is that?
Should be. It's going to be weather permitting, and in fairness to Cled, I need him to be able to operate that machinery the way that it is designed or the way that he uses it. And I don't want to interfere in his business. You know, let him pick a date. You know, if it's not our next meeting, hopefully by the next meeting. So that, I don't know if he has a huge tree job going on. I'm not going to say, yep, stop because I need you to grind today. But we need to get it done within the next couple of meetings.
So my only concern is, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, how do we make sure the machine is running at that point in time the way it normally would?
I need one of his people to start it up for me and for me to see the type of pile that he has there. I'm pretty
Saying
familiar with the
it
pile.
couldn't run less
Like low.
activating. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can't like turn it down sometimes and.
It depends what they put in it too. I've got videos of dumping front end loads and stuff, so.
So
Then you got the normal operating with just the engine, and then as they load different things, there's a loud noise, like a jet, and then you get banging and stuff, and sometimes you see stuff being thrown on the top of it.
And so I'm going to leave that up to your best, my opinion, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for the board. Your best opinion as to what to have in there and stuff. I don't know if
Exactly.
you want to take a look at the video just for your own, you know.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I would also like to say, you brought up the site plan for the fire department. We shouldn't have any banners on this, because that's only for his fire codes. As far as I've found, and everything approved by the building, planning board, that machine's not even approved on that property. There's no valid site plan for it. It shouldn't be there.
That's incorrect. It's on the site plan, the
It's
fire
not on
chief's
the
site plan. I think that
I've got copies of the site plans here.
okay, well,
But if you brought that up to the planning board, I mean, we're talking the Board of Health right
Well,
now.
you brought up the fire department one, but that's not valid.
Well, the fire department, if they don't meet the fire code,
But that's not
We
a valid.
can't go
site
anywhere,
plan.
that's
It was
all.
Approved at the lot.
The grinder's right here on the plan.
Just so you know, I have my permit since 2016. My approvals.
Not approved for that machine.
My approval since 2016, just so you know.
And I've heard your arguments there. It's not a tech machine.
2021, March 21st. So we have two different plans. Can we take a look at your plan? Do you have that plan with you? I just want to see if there's two different plans.
which one is that particular plan,
This
Steve?
one's 2021.
From the fire
Racking
department?
Engineer,
Hang on, I got the letter.
Is that the fire?
excuse me?
Is that from the fire department?
this is the plan that was submitted to the fire chief.
Okay, because there's also a letter that the fire department said, this plan does not supersede any other plan. I do have that letter here. So whatever's on that plan, all the fire department cares about is their part of the code. Not if there's a grinder, not if there's not a grinder, not if there's a porta potty.
Yeah, here's the letter. Please note that my approval of this plan does not supersede any other requirements set forth by any other town departments or boards. That's only for his needs.
Oh, yeah, and that goes with 16.
So the signed off ones in the planning board have no machine in any of their.
I didn't need to show any
It just shows an
equipment.
empty yard. And I've sat through many meetings, they said any other
Can move
new
my
use
phone.
that's not on the site plans has to get all reviewed again.
I'd like to see a copy of whatever you submitted.
Okay, so But here's the issue. Although I agree with you that it's
I know,
not
it's not
here.
this board. We're dealing with
Right,
the
right.
noise.
We can't, I mean, I agree that it's not there.
He brought this up and showed you saying the fire department says this is all good, which it's not good.
Right, like I said.
I think that's because we put that on the agenda asking specifically about that. So
Yeah,
that's why he was addressing.
What's the date on this one?
It's fine.
They go all the way back from like 2005 up to 19 for revisions.
So, I mean, that was definitely something that would have to go up to I was hoping what was gonna happen, to be honest with you, is, we were gonna maybe all agree to put up a, some sort of barrier or something, rather than
That's
kind
how
of
something
friendly
mitigated
neighbors.
one voice.
Right,
Yeah, and as the DEP says, it's contained on this property.
The
so,
screen thing. like
all
I
we
said,
can
I'll
do as a board
This guy's never gonna be such.
is have the decibels done.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So all we can do as a board, yes, I can physically see that the grind is not on there, but that
I
has
haven't
nothing.
seen any of that, so.
Right, but what I'm saying is that has nothing to do with us, we can say it is, and there's nothing we can do about that. All we can concentrate on is those decibels and the noise.
Yeah.
Anything else is, up to another board.
Clint is saying that he's willing to put up the barrier, but it's, there's just no real clear answer as to what to put up. And we're
Right, what's gonna be
experimenting,
sufficient, right?
with the idea of this mesh, because it's high, we can put it up high, and
What is your opinion on a mesh something going up? I'm just trying to get everybody's opinion here.
My opinion is, it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as
It breaks some sort
Softens the
of.
noise, yeah.
I think the issue is say we put it up and one side says, oh yeah, this is working, this sounds way less, and the other says, no, it's not helping. Either way, we're still looking at what the decibel reading is.
Alright,
So it
so
would be
yeah, so we-
helpful to
to
have
have
it,
that,
and
yeah.
then again, we could say, yeah, you put this up, is it working or not? Well,
What's the
we'll
other
do the decibels and see if it's working.
I don't know.
I agree.
Because otherwise, we're back to square one, which is one side says, oh yeah, it's working, it's way better, and the other side says, no, it's not working.
I agree. So I mean, I guess as they say, the proof will be in the pudding, whichever way it floats. So let's set that up, Bob. You can set
And
it up.
then if it did determine to be too loud from DEP, maybe it will save him the expense of putting up a barrier now, and he could try the barrier then to see if it stops it.
And
So,
I mean, it
I
could
mean-
go
We'd
the
have a
other way.
baseline, we'd have a pre-barrier.
We'll have a baseline
Right.
and able to try to solve this because, are there hours of operation that you'd be comfortable with him running?
Nope.
Okay,
It's only sleeping in the
That's
house
all.
all daytime.
that's good. So,
If you can run it and lower the noise, barrier, whatever works, if the DEP says, they can mitigate it.
Well, let's get the numbers first. We'll have unless you hear different, anybody is different, we plan to have the numbers at the next meeting. Pull the numbers out in front of everybody and say, all right, here's what they are, what are we gonna do about it? And whatever, for lack of better phrasing, whatever side wins, if you will, we're just gonna all have to accept it at that point, as far as what the Board of Health can do. If the plan doesn't show the grind, and you're gonna go to planning, whatever, so be it, but once we've got the numbers, whichever way the chips fall is just the way the chips fall, per the DEP. So,
But that's-
my opinion.
Just so you know, I've told Bob, that's one reason the house went down to us, because my wife's head on the floor of Mass General, a clinical professor since college, has been working nights for 20 years, sleeps all day, so
Right.
that's why
Right, it wouldn't
the
matter.
hours, working hours, the noise just has to be mitigated and brought down.
Well, right, but we can't just force it to happen without, it's like you say in the court of law, you gotta have.
I need the numbers, so.
Right, exactly, so we'll get the numbers in, and that way we're all on the same page. That's my opinion.
Agreed.
yeah, this is far different than a lawnmower or a neighbor, wood chipper that's there for a day. He's in an industrial area, and has a house. Let's see how it falls. Exactly.
That's all we can do. All right, well, thank you very much for coming in, guys.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, I just, I just hope that, there's one thing, yeah, I would just hope the board does take that into consideration, what was just said, that, the decibels, whatever they are, I have no idea what they're gonna be, It should be looked at in light of the circumstances, as well as, not just numbers on numbers, but where are you when you're hearing this noise? Are you in a residential neighborhood? Are you surrounded by, across a busy street from an industrial park? Because people have to run their businesses, and that's why they put them in industrial parks, so that they can do that without disturbing people.
There's also rules too, industrial parks, depending on the business.
And that's why you have the authority to apply those rules as you see fit.
No, that's why we're gonna get the numbers first. Remember, we gotta keep the health of everybody as well as Cled's, business in mind. We have to,
Not
we have
just
to take
Cled's.
both sides.
Not just Cled's business, but, we have to apply a reasonable standard, I would imagine. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I'd like to know what's the other complaint come from?
Yes, it's off of Laurel Street. Right now, because it's an active investigation, I can't give you that. I may be able to, if I talk to town council, give it to your attorney. But it was on Laurel Street, and basically about vibration and noise, and it came in.
So since when? Because
Last
I have-
night, it
since
came
when?
in.
Because I haven't.
Came
run
in,
that machine
it
for-
came in last night on an email, is what I was trying to
I
explain.
haven't run the machine, so how they
No.
making a complaint?
To give you
Isn't
the
that-
background of the
Isn't
complaint,
that very funny?
I'm just telling you what came in my email last night.
How they can make a complaint, Bob, since I'm not running the machine? Could you answer that for me, please?
I can tell you what the email says, yes. That it didn't happen from recently, that in the past, when you ran the machine.
I think his point is that he's concerned that some actions might be more retaliatory and not based on the actual complaint. But
As I just said,
yeah.
it came in last night.
All right, thank you very much.
Tell the board too, the last Board of Health meeting, once the noise was being talked about, someone else came over to me and said that now they realize what that noise is, then they bring it up to Cranberry Drive. I think some people didn't realize where the noise was coming from,
Right.
but they've been hearing it.
Well, like I said, I mean, we'll take the numbers, we'll take everything, and, so we hope to have everything,
First, two, three.
when is the next week?
September 1st,
September 1st.
first day of school.
Is that the next meeting, or?
September 1st, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on vacation that week.
It was 9:13 last night, Cled, just so you know, and
Is there a date after that we could convene? or-
The 15th, right? The first and the third Wednesday, so it'll be September 15th.
What's that?
Cled,
The
it
meeting
only
after that
said
would be the 15th,
in
right?
prior months.
How does the board feel about pushing it out to the?
We
Nothing.
have.
You understand me, right? It's nothing.
No, I just wanted to clarify, it did
Yeah.
say in prior months, that's all.
How does the board feel about pushing it out to the 15th? No, so council will be it. All right, let's do it on the 15th, so.
I appreciate that.
Council can be here.
Thank you very much.
Would it be a good idea to have our council here as well at this point, or not really? 'Cause
Well, once I get the readings and I can talk to DPH, DPH and DEP, OSHA if I have to, and get a sense of where they go with this, because again, we don't have it specifically in our town bylaws.
Right.
So it's going to be a matter of either how the code is interpreted. At that point, yes, we would need legal. Because again, it's, the noise is a difficult parameter.
So you'll make that decision of whether or not we have to contact council?
Oh, absolutely.
Based on the information you get? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so September 15th, we'll all meet back here at 6:30 PM.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate your time and.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clyde.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, it was nice to meet you.
Two? Have a great day.
All right, administrative report. Administrative assistant is working on innovative alternative, IA, secondary systems that require an operations and monitoring contract. So my question to that is, and only because I had a call about this today in another town, are we making sure that contracts are in place?
Wow. A never-ending attempt for my administrative assistant to be as efficient as she possibly can. Okay? It's awesome. Peggy just, grabbed the ball and decided to run with it. She goes, Bob, I haven't had the time because we didn't have Kelly for a while. COVID was going on. So we have a full list of all the IA systems and exactly where they are with their contracts and all the compliance letters that we have currently sent out to each and every house that has one here in Halifax.
Okay, so what's the plans if there is no compliance, if we're ignored, if you will?
Oh, that one I have full regulatory power on, so don't have to worry about that. They have deed restrictions, they have, we can find them.
Many different avenues to travel.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, but we just hadn't had the time to ever really follow up on it.
That's darn pig.
Did you get the list, by the way? Great.
All right, COVID. This isn't going to be a wonderful conversation, but let's have it.
Last 2-week run rate, 24 cases out of 293 tests, 6.12%.
On the last set of cases, are they still coming in on a daily basis?
Yes, I'm still getting them on a daily basis. And there were only 3 people in the same household. Because I almost count the same household like a 1, But, so if the 24 were 6 households, I'd feel better, so to speak. So I'm really talking, 21 different households, yeah.
So.
And they're just cases, we don't have like hospitalization or whatever?
No, we can, when I talk about the nurse here in a minute, I've been using the contact tracing team to help me out with some of the contact tracing because my nurse hasn't been able to answer back to Maven yet. So they've tried to contact her a couple of times, and the last response on 7/15, my nurse to me, was she needed a town email. She got the town email on 7/29, and here we are on 8/18, and I have yet to hear back from her. So I would say, if I really want to dig into these cases, to answer your question, I need to have a nurse on board with me. And I think even though she has a contract, before I start her up with us, we should sit down and identify if this candidate really wants the job.
And
Right.
we
I mean,
need
this
her
has been
right
going
now,
on for a
she's
long
ignoring
time.
us.
Yeah.
This has been
I
going on.
mean, looks like the first one was sent
And-
back in March.
Right. And totally honest, I haven't been killing myself to reach out to her in that she works for us. I would think that the responsibility or the drive would be to contact us and see where she could help in other areas in the town, if not under the Maven umbrella of things. Wellness clinics, doing any kind of,
Does this follow a breach of contract at this point? Can we just start over?
well,
I mean, I feel like we're at a time right now where we don't have time to dilly-dally around and see if she wants to play baseball or not.
I mean, could we give her a deadline? Could we say, do your Maven training in the next 2 weeks, or we're moving on?
I honestly think that the Maven training should have already been done,
Oh, I agree.
and we should
But
talk to her.
if we're talking about, contracts and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
if we say to her, we need this done by now, and if you don't do it, we're gonna,
How about by our next board meeting?
sounds good to me.
Sounds great.
And then that way, we're at least giving her an opportunity to do it, but.
And we bring her
It's not
in,
real impressive that it's taken this long to do it, to be honest.
when we
Yeah, maybe
hired
her
her,
situation has changed, since she
Yeah.
was, how long ago was she
5 months.
hired?
March, April,
Yeah,
it
it just
took me
says
that
she
long
got,
to
her
find
first
somebody.
training email was sent on March 11th.
I just feel like she should, and I get it, every situation changes, I just feel like she should have maybe reached out and said, hey, things have kind of changed a little
Right,
bit, this
right.
really isn't something, I can take on right now.
Right.
Thank you for the opportunity.
In the interest of not breaking her contract, we could say, this is what we need. Can you, do it by the next meeting? If not,
So my big concern is, I know that that there's a lot of groups getting together, teenagers right now. So my biggest fear is, I know this thing can start spreading like wildfire. And the reason I bring that up is, I am heavily, now my kids will wear masks, let's start with that, for instance, it's everyone's choice. But I am highly and heavily worried about what is going to happen in the school. I understand what the school committee voted. Where does the Board of Health stand with that? Do we have to just accept their thing? I mean, as numbers are driving upward.
So what the school committee voted was to follow DESI, which is highly recommend but not require, and also to not enforce any penalty or punishment, if you will, for not wearing a mask. So it's not that they said they don't need them, it's sort of right now we're going to defer to what the state is saying, which I haven't heard that DESI has changed at all at this point.
My only concern, and I don't disagree with you, is are we going to end up in remote in another 3 months? By not just saying, look, you know what, let's wear masks, let's ride this out a little bit longer and see what happens, and before we get into school and all of a sudden we get a bunch of sick kids everywhere and we're remote as well as, I've heard Bob use the term a million times, get ahead of the curve.
Right.
So and I'm not disagreeing with the school committee, I'm stuck between two worlds. From a Board of Health point of view, if we should be jumping in front of this, you being in the medical field probably have a better understanding of it all.
So the other thing I'll say about the school committee meeting was that they had the district attorney or some sort of legal representation there, because in Kingston, actually, the Board of Health voted that they did want masks. And so the question was, well, how does that affect the school committee's choice? And the answer was, well, it's up to the school committee. So we can make recommendations, but it's not, we can't supersede them or put something in place without their voting on it, is the first thing I would say. The second thing that I would say is I feel like it's an evolving situation that I think at this point definitely warrants close monitoring. What I will say is the cases are up. As Pam asked earlier, I think hospitalization rates is the other big question, right? So, Yes, it's spreading. Are people getting really sick, or are people getting a cold and recovering in a week is the other important question. I did a lot of looking into this last week in preparation for the school committee meeting. Massachusetts vaccination rates are excellent, and I think that's why right now our hospitalization rates are so low. They're low. I mean,
Well, my fear of that, though, and I agree with you, and that's why it's so low, is the fact that K through 6th grade children can't get vaccinated.
correct.
So that's, I think, where my fear is, because the cases of the hospitalization is low and everything, because that vaccine is supposed to do, correct?
Yep.
Maybe just more kind of like a common
Yep,
cold instead of the deadly thing that we've seen. But if you now bring this in to 700, 800 students that legally and medically cannot be vaccinated, what are we gonna now do? Are we gonna have colds, or are we gonna be filling, instead of up with the elderly, are we gonna be filling hospitals up with children? That's where my fear is.
Yeah, and so the answer to that, I would say, is that in Massachusetts, as well as I believe in the country, we're still not seeing high pediatric rates.
Okay. No, like, it's just all
It's scary.
curious.
Yeah,
It is.
It is. And the other thing that I want to say, as far as masking goes, I worked in the pediatric ICU years and years, and you wore a mask to protect yourself. The transmission of COVID-19, from what I've seen, is largely droplet, which means you have to get someone's saliva or bodily fluid on your, membranes to contract it. It's not necessarily, I haven't found any good evidence that says it is airborne, which means particles. So you're protecting yourself tremendously by wearing a mask. So, you put a mask on your kids, you are doing something to protect them, even though everyone around them isn't. And that was the science we practiced for years with things like flu and RSV. When the pandemic hit, it was mask everybody because, we want to do the best we can. We don't know a lot about this. But from what I've seen, it's largely droplet, meaning if you put a mask over your mouth and nose and do a good job washing your hands, you're protecting yourself quite a bit. So I think it'll be interesting to see. It's an evolving situation. I think we have to continue to follow the numbers. But right now, I think recommended but not required is in my opinion too.
Yeah, I mean, in my closing argument would just be like, I work with people that feel that getting the injection shot, they're putting microchips in. So the point I'm getting at is, if I tell my parent, because I believe whatever it is I believe, if I tell my child, you ain't wearing a mask. So there are people out there that don't believe it. They are now putting their child at risk because of their belief. And that's where I get scared, because the child has no say or choice. The child has been told by that child's parents who are not wearing a mask. That child is now potentially put in a terrible situation based on the parents' beliefs, when if we just said mask for all students, there would be no chance. So that's where my whole feeling comes from.
But then you also have to take into consideration all the other, issues of wearing masks, right? So you've got kids who are having problems with their face. You're having kids who are having issues emotionally, socially. There's so many factors. It's not just a matter of just, getting the virus. There's other things that need to be taken into consideration. And I had mentioned to Bob, my understanding is there are no studies in a school setting that show by masking the kids that it stops transmission.
And it hasn't really been transmitted in schools. The American Academy of Pediatrics has said pretty much with every statement, we encourage in-person learning because, the transmission rates in school are similar to the transmission rates in the community in which the school lies. Kids have never been a vector. They're not carrying this around. They haven't been transmitting it luckily. Again, an evolving situation.
Right. I'm not going against the school committee. I just wanted to voice some of the concerns I have as a parent as well as a health.
And the other,
board member.
to play devil's advocate to your comment, parents make choices for their kids every day. There are some parents that don't get their kids vaccinated at all. And, yes, our job as the board is to sort of make recommendations for people and try to help guide them. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, parents, that's what we do all day long. We make choices for our kids. So I think an evolving situation, and personally, I think the recommended but not required is the route right now.
So one of the things, too, that I should mention with why they went with recommended, there's a far greater ability for the testing of kids in school now.
Okay.
At
that's
the
good.
beginning stages, last year, the testing just wasn't available. People couldn't get tests. Now, DESE has set up programs where they'll either do pool testing within the schools, or when kids have a sniffle or a sneeze, might be the cold, they can get an instant antigen rapid test and be segregated from the population. So, to your point, pro, con on mask, I don't know if we'll ever get an answer. I think it's indisputable that good personal hygiene will stop transmission. Okay, so if it's droplet related, if it's cough, sneeze, I'll tell you one thing, especially K through 6, they gotta wash their hands, they gotta clean themselves, because they're just walking infectious things.
Petri dishes, they're petri dishes.
So, whether they have a mask on or not, I'm gonna advocate for good personal hygiene, wash your hands, and
And then I think figuring out the nursing situation is going to be important too, because if this thing continues to snowball, I think not only do we need to know the number of cases, but it's helpful to know, were they hospitalized, were they symptomatic even? I mean, some of these tests could just be, oh, I was exposed, you know, or I had to travel and when I got back, work made me get one and I had a positive test, but I didn't feel anything. Yes, those people are carrying it, but again, the vaccines are working, they're not getting super sick, so.
what's interesting, I was able to contact out of the 24, I've already personally got in touch with 9 of them. Only 3 said, yeah, it hit me pretty good. You know, all the rest were pretty asymptomatic, or if symptom, you know.
My other question is, when you talk to them, are you allowed to ask if they're vaccinated?
They sort, no,
No, yeah, it sounds like a.
but
But that would be good to know too, you know?
well, it's amazing what people disclose without being asked, you know?
You
Oh, by the way,
I
right?
experience that all day.
So, I have to be fully aware of HIPAA violations, but I know things I didn't want to know.
We've actually got customers now in our industry that have, I don't know if it's legal or not, but it basically said if you're going to be servicing our clients, you need to send drivers that are vaccinated.
Right.
And we have been asked voluntarily if we would like to let them know if we are vaccinated or not, the company, that way they can align drivers up as need to be.
The one thing I have seen too is, and sorry to interrupt, but is a far greater range of whether you have it bad or not bad. When COVID first started last March, predominantly people that were already ill and the elderly, maybe some of the mid, but now I'm getting as young as 4 and as old as 84.
Gonna say, we have a pretty good range right now.
Right, yeah, that range, it's all over the place, and it's all over the demographic of the town. It's not just an isolated area or, so.
Super spreaders everywhere.
Use, again, you know, if you're, I think it's just, like 2 words come into mind about this whole conversation.
Common sense.
Yeah,
Responsibility.
yeah.
Are you responsible? And can you be kind?
Because the other
Kindness
thing too,
goes,
I mean,
you know?
the other thing is the expectation here. COVID is not going away for a long time, right?
Oh, no.
Like this is going to be around for a long time. The goal of the vaccine and maybe a booster is that it's here, but we're protecting people from overrunning the hospitals, you know, and flooding the ERs and not having enough healthcare workers to take care of them and keeping them from dying. So it's not that we're going to be able to stop it, and we're probably going to have more cases in the winter when cold and flu season hits. It's a matter of keeping people healthy enough when they have it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it's
We're kind
not
of
going
suppressing
away.
it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And we're minimizing the symptoms. And I think realistic expectations is important. I think both sides, you know, one side can be here forever and it's, you know, it's not real. It's never going to go away. I think realistic expectations is important too, because it's not going anywhere.
Steve,
You just gotta state your name and your address, please.
Kimberly Kate Vicky, 668 Plymouth Street. Going back on the, Ken was saying that knowing if folks are vaccinated or not and it being a HIPAA thing, what if the board or Bob were to ask Representative Lenatra or our senators to do special legislation that would switch it so the health department and DPH would be able to get that information for tracking? And I know, like, I don't show up as fully vaccinated because I was one of the people that was like, I'm good with the variant, I'm 65% safe if I don't do the second one, and I don't plan on getting my second vaccination. I only got one, and I'm done, but that's who I personally am. And if that would be an option to speak to, or even Kevin Cranston or Monica up at DPH or the legislature, so you guys can have the valuable information you need to.
So I think that somebody is asking the question because there was on the news this morning statistics about breakthrough cases in people who are vaccinated. So I think, the state knows who's vaccinated and who's not. I just don't know, like, how publicly we can share any of that. Or, again, and this goes back to if we had a nurse who was on Maven and could find this stuff out, I wonder if that would be available. Because if they can say that, something of really less than 1% of the cases were people who are vaccinated, was what I saw in the news this morning, I think, don't quote me. So they must know who's vaccinated and who isn't. I mean, they're keeping track of it. The question is if, this information is available to us or not.
We'd have to be careful at town level not to violate
Yeah,
the
there's
laws.
like HIPAA laws.
And there, I don't see that as a viable path. If they want to do it from a state level, that would be fine, but that's how I see it.
Are you guys allowed to request it from the state level, Bob?
I'm sorry, I
Are you
didn't hear.
allowed to request the statistics for Halifax from the state level if they were available?
Which,
For COVID?
everything that the state has gets relayed down to us
Okay.
So I
at
bet
this
it-
point in time.
I bet if you had a nurse in Maven, I bet you could probably see some of that information. Don't you think that that would be part of what they track? Because if they can say that, less than 1% of cases are from vaccinated people, they must have that information.
Right, well, and again, so with the tracing, currently, the standard is to make sure that they're following the proper protocols.
Okay, gotcha.
Are you isolating? Have you taken, who have you been with? Is this gonna become a super spreader? So, I believe the area you guys are going is more into epidemiology.
Okay.
And we do have a state epidemiology department that is tracking like crazy
Okay,
and
so maybe it's
providing
more just contact. Okay.
exactly.
So to be continued.
Right, at this time, please just be respectful, use common sense,
And love one another.
kind.
All right, we have to vote to affirm bills paid. A, the NEHA health agent registered environmental exam for $390. And the payroll for the week ending August 14th, 2021 for Robert Valerie, Margaret Seltzer, Kelly Dwyer, and Brian Kling. Can I get a motion, please?
Yep, I move to affirm bills for NEHA health agent registered environmental exam and for the payroll week ending August 14th for the items 1 through 4.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Take a motion to, I'd like to, how about we close the meeting at 7:39? Can I get a motion, please?
Motion to close the meeting at 7:39.
Excuse me? Permits?
I didn't see any permits. Did I miss it? What's that?
You're right, sorry. All right, I second the motion to end the meeting at now 7:39.
All in favor?
Aye.
Never